everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers Podcast. I am Jody Grunwald. This week, I am joined by my special guest co-host, Scott Chesney. He is known as the Commander in Change. Scott is a world-renowned motivational speaker and life coach. Together, we interview Nancy Romanyshyn, Director of Pay Strategy and Partner Success at Syndio. We talk about pay equity, opportunity equity, why it is sometimes hard to say the words, I don't know, who we allow in our sphere of influence, and how they have the power to truly help us to thrive. Oh, and don't miss the end, where these two incredible friends talk about their little feud about Oreos. I pose this question to those listening. Are Oreos black or brown? Inquiring minds want to know. Comment or email me at jody@todayisthedayliveit.com. Let's have some fun with this. Please take a moment to subscribe to the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel, comment, like, and share. Download us on all streaming sites. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. Also, for more information about this podcast, the Changemakers Forum, and everything that Today is the Day is working on, go to todayisthedayliveit.com. I'm also the CEO and co-founder of the Zach G. Applaud Our Kids Foundation, providing funding for children living with financial barriers to take ongoing lessons in the performing arts. Go to applaudourkids.org for more information. The views expressed by all Today is the Day Changemakers podcast guests are their own. Their appearance on the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast does not imply any endorsement of them or any entity that they represent. Have a great week, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am Jody Grunwald, and as I say every week, I get to interview the inspirers, the changemakers, and those who are disrupting the status quo in the best way possible. And today I'm blessed because I have two people with me, one returning special guest co-host. Hello, Scott Chesney. How are you?
Hey, Jody. Great to see you. Thanks for having me on again.
Oh, I am so excited to have you back. We always have so much fun with this. And Scott is a world-renowned motivational speaker, life coach. He is the Commander in Change. And we'll hear more from Scott in a little bit. And Nancy, I'm going to have you pronounce your name correctly for everyone, because if I don't like when people botch my name, and I want to make sure we say your name correctly. So please tell us your last name.
Sure. So I'm Nancy Romanyshyn. So it's easy once you say it, but yeah, I know
it is really easy. Romanyshyn. Okay, that I can now. I should have it. Let's hope.
Okay.
So, but welcome. We're so happy to have you as part of Changemakers. And Scott introduced me to Nancy. So I'm going to do, before we get started, I'm just going to read a little bit from your bio to just do an introduction, and then we're going to have a great conversation as I always do. Nancy Romanyshyn is the Director of Pay Strategy and Partner Success at Syndio. She works with companies to assess, diagnose, and uncover how their compensation programs are delivering pay so they can refine and build rewards with built-in fairness. Syndio helps companies embed workplace equity into their core business so they can achieve enduring success. Their software platform and expert guidance helps identify pay gaps, measure employee opportunity and representation, and create equitable workplaces. Nancy is also a board member of SPAN, Parent Advocacy Network, committed to empowering families as advocates and partners in improving education, health, and mental health outcomes for infants, toddlers, children, and youth. Nancy, welcome. Scott, welcome. And you're doing such great work. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. So let's get started. I always go back to this question. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up right here in New Jersey, in West Caldwell. So I live in Verona now, but I just grew up about a town over in West Caldwell.
So you and Scott live not too far from each other, I'm assuming.
No, we do not. In fact, and I knew about Scott before I met him. So I'd heard all about the famous. I had heard all about the famous Scott Chesney. No, so yes, we kind of grew up together, but like parallel.
Oh, that's awesome. And so how long do you know each other for?
Oh, goodness.
Oh,
I know.
wow.
Should we admit this? Should we admit this on the podcast, right?
No, I mean, I think over 10 years, maybe. No, probably like 20 years.
Yeah, you better go to your marriage and
over 20 years. You're right. No.
I grew up with her husband, a very, very dear friend of mine. Now Nancy's a dear friend of mine. So this is almost like a grade school friend of mine. So whenever they met, a short time, a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
after that. So do the math, Nancy. Do the
No,
math.
you're right. You're right. Probably more like, I don't know, 23, 24 years. Oh,
It just seems like 10 years. That's
it
all.
does. It
I was
does.
going
It's
to
a
say
good thing.
25 years, but that's okay.
So, so you said you knew about Scott because he was famous in the community
Yes.
for so many reasons, and so that is incredible. But you first met because of your husband. Is that the reason you actually
Yes.
met?
Yeah. And I remember it well just because I was like, I thought I was meeting a celebrity. I'm like, what? You know Scott Chesney? And I got to meet him and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I'm like, he's just like a regular guy. So like, okay.
Now, Jody, and you're going to hear all about Nancy's story, but the tables have turned. So now I'm the one who's starstruck and just like, oh my God, it's Nancy Romanyshyn. And I mean that. I mean that. And I must say this, Jody, with everyone that you've had on this program, and they've been fantastic guests from all walks of life. Nancy, I really think the title of her autobiography should be Been There, Done That, because she's had so many experiences and she continues to climb the ladder and just like really absorbing every experience to the point where she's able to connect with anyone, almost like on any topic. And it's gotten to the point where like you sit there almost like mesmerized by what she has to say, because there's a depth, there's a brevity to it that it's so refreshing to me.
I do have a question now, Nancy. Nancy, what did it feel like to hear that from Scott?
I'm about to fall off my chair. So thank you, Scott, from the depth of my heart, because I admire him as much as it sounds like you're admiring me. So I really appreciate it. So I think of Scott as somebody who's just beyond amazing. And that's what's so neat is to watch Scott, have all of the experiences he's had, the life that he's had, and yet he's still that guy that grew up in Verona, New Jersey. So it's like he's never lost that. And I have watched many, many times people just attracted to him. He's like a magnet, and you see it in action, and it really is wonderful.
So isn't that interesting? I don't know if you've shared this with each other as friends prior to this podcast in any way, but my message from just seeing this and watching your faces share about each other is, do we take the time to really share with the people we're around and with how much they mean to us and the impact that they have? Or do we keep it a secret sometimes and just think that they know?
I think that's a great point.
Yeah. I think what's beautiful about this, and again, I'm going to challenge everyone who's listening to this right now, is that while you could say you have like a lot of friends out there and a lot of followers on social media, I have a very small group of friends who I can actually talk to about anything. And I say this like from the bottom of my heart. Nancy's one of those people who just recently was over at our house once we had a renovation done. And like there were like issues that I was uncomfortable with that were going on in the world. And I went right to Nancy and right to her husband, Chris. And, I'm just there and like a student sitting in the front row and learning, knowing full well that my life is just going to be expanded. And I think once you find friends like that, you keep them. These aren't only friends that are going to be your biggest cheerleader, in which Nancy and Chris, they're two of my biggest cheerleaders, but they're also going to call me on stuff. They're also going to tell me when, you know what, you're not being the best version of yourself. And I think that's what we need. And we need to be open to that with our friends, with our colleagues, not take it so personally, but take it as an opportunity to grow and learn more about ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's so on point. And as you were talking, I was reflecting on a lot of the experiences I've had this past year and a half or so with the colleagues in Syndio, my new company, because we're very much a mission-driven organization. And it's just continually fascinating to me. It's a collection of people who have very different backgrounds. But we have to have a level of vulnerability with one another if we're going to accomplish what it is we're going to accomplish. So that requires, that feeling, scared to share things, having to kind of push through that discomfort to reach out to people to say, I don't know this. And I'm worried that I'm doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing or whatever it might be. And what do you think? And having, just like Scott said, being vulnerable when people, call you out on something and say, I know you said this, but did you realize you didn't think about this, this, and this? And it's like, oh, so, and then just saying, all right, I need to push through it. It's okay to fail a little bit, as long as mostly we're succeeding and moving in the right direction. And then at the same time, treating each other with the utmost respect. I find I remind myself a lot to just close my mouth, listen, take it in, and just be very conscious of just having an exchange that's just very respectful and open. And it's been wonderful. I mean, I've had conversations with people that are just gifts, absolute gifts. And it's helped me continue to learn. I mean, I think that's what I've, the older, it's that old saying, right? The older you get, the less you know. And that's how I feel. I feel like I'm constantly learning, and it's really been a wonderful experience. But Scott, to your point, it's being open, it's being vulnerable with one another. And I think with many of our loved ones, we have patterns that we have fallen into over the years, and it's okay. I think it's okay I think this whole pandemic has caused us to kind of have this moment where we are rethinking all of those things, those relationships, and how we spend our time and where we spend our time, because we were forced to stay in our homes and not do anything, right? And so I think for a lot of us, it's sort of, I know for me especially, I have been really evaluating sort of all of that. I'm still sort of in this journey of self-evaluation and just making sure, knowing, especially, I think one of the big lessons is life is short and not guaranteed, right? Nothing is guaranteed. So make every moment count as best as you can. And that translates into making sure your relationships are rich and are of value. And, I think getting the most out of just getting the most out of life in general, I think that's sort of, for me, that's been a big lesson.
I think we're all pretty much around the same age. I hope you don't mind me saying that, but I think we are. And
not at all.
And I think when I was younger, it was head down, blinders on. You want to, career first, kids. And there was really not a lot of time for all of this reflection. And then you get to a certain point in your life. And my hope is that through this podcast, for those who are in that younger demographic, that they don't waste that time, that they use that time to really find themselves and connection. And Scott knows this, because I probably say this on every podcast: when we can lower our judgment, we can allow ourselves to have this vulnerability that breeds this connection on a level that most have never experienced before, because everything goes back to being afraid to be judged. And so we don't share.
Right. Jody, you said, and you've talked about this in your podcast, vulnerability, before, and I know Nancy talks about it a lot. And then Nancy brings up the line, I don't know. So if you just think about the general public in terms of, one, being vulnerable, and two, even thinking of echoing those words, I don't know, it's almost like last on your list of things to do, things that you want to do, a place that you want to go. But yet we're realizing the strength and empowerment is that, like, those words, I don't know, are so powerful. I mean, I always tell people that the moment I have everything figured out in life, you dig a hole in the ground and cover me with dirt, there's no reason to be alive. So for me, it's about like constant, never ending improvement. And I just heard the other day, and Nancy, you reminded me of this, is that we can't learn if we're talking all the time. We are not learning. Like, I'm talking right now, I'm not necessarily learning. I'm talking, I'm sharing, I'm doing all this, which is important. But the moment we close our mouths and we really engage, which I think is really difficult these days for some people, but yet not impossible, is to look at somebody in the eye, to nod your head if you need, whatever you need to do, but to be in that moment, not necessarily thinking of what you're going to say next, but really allowing those words that are coming in, because you need to hear them. You need to hear them.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I just am called to this now that you just said that,
Yeah.
is that I've been on this, what's been happening is I've been paying more attention, like you were talking about. And do you know how many times a day somebody asks you, how are you? And how we throw those three words. They're the most, if you think about it, they're very intimate words, because if you answer honestly, you're being vulnerable. And are you open to hearing it on the other side? And Nancy, before you're talking about how your organization, people are really connecting. So, that how are you piece, I'm going to ask you both this question. How do we stop throwing away, in your opinion, how do we stop throwing away those 3 words? It'd be better to just say, hope you're having a great day, as opposed to asking someone a question that you may not care about the answer to. So
Yeah.
I'd love your thoughts on that.
It's funny because with the recent shootings, especially the ones in Buffalo, I did something that I don't, and sorry, I'm saying it on this podcast. I didn't really talk about it and but I reached out individually to some folks where I work. And I did say and I wasn't sure of like how I was going to do this because it made me feel uncomfortable, but I just said, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you and hope you're doing okay. And just kind of sent that as a text too to their because I happen to have their phone numbers, so I could send it as a text. And it was funny because it's that I was very conscious of then when I spoke with them live. So everybody was appreciative and they were lovely about it. But then when I spoke with them live, I asked the question, how are you? But I stopped. It wasn't, how are you? Like the pleasantry, how you doing? Let's get started. It was, how are you?
From the heart.
Right. And I think it's just, so to me, it's almost like, I'm not going to say the words unless I'm sincerely interested in knowing how you are. So, and I will, and if you do decide to take that moment to share with me how you really are, then I'll see it as a gift and I'll stop talking. And whatever else it was that we were going to talk about maybe isn't as important as understanding where you are in that moment. Like that's, to me, I think that's how you have, it has value. It's being, Scott's going to laugh. So no surprise, I talk a lot. And I'm a talker. I talk fast. I talk a lot. And
you are a good listener though. You
okay.
You do love to talk, but you are a great listener.
I've tried to, thank you. I sincerely appreciate that because that is a skill set. That's a muscle I'm constantly exercising and trying to flex. So
now, I don't know if your family would agree, but I'm like extended family. So I'm just sharing that. So
and I
don't speak on behalf of everyone. I don't speak on behalf of everyone.
No, and it is genetic. I mean, when my daughter got called out in school for talking too much, I just said to her, I said, listen, I did, your grandmother did. It's genetic. It's something this is not going to be the first time you're going to have this issue. So just know that. And when I talk with people in other parts of the country, like I know we're all here, Metro New York, I will preface with, I am from New Jersey. We talk over each other. We interrupt each other. I'm Italian. I talk with my hands. So if you want to get a word in edgewise, please, Midwestern person, West Coast person, but interrupt me. I know it's sort of out of because you guys are also polite. Yeah, we're not. So please interrupt me. It's fine.
But I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that, Nancy, because I'm in this. I always do preface when I go out and I speak. Just so you know, I talk fast. I'm from Brooklyn. So if you need me to slow down, just raise your hand.
Right. That's exactly it. Right. So anyway, but I mean, I think trying to choose my words wisely, being more judicious about what I'm saying. I do a lot of sales work. We're talking to a lot of new clients, and that third level listening, like all of those things are really important when you're trying to engage with somebody like this for the first time. And so it is important you say certain things and then you just stop and you listen and you look at facial expressions and you try to read your audience and you try to be responsive. It is work, but it's a muscle. I continue to try to exercise.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to go to Scott for that question about, the how are you? Because I'm on a mission to really help people change asking that question when they really don't want to hear the answer, or they don't want to be vulnerable when asked that question themselves. So Scott, go ahead. What is your thoughts on this?
I'm just trying to be these days. I was asked a long time ago by an audience member, like, what one word would best describe who you are, Scott? And I remember hearing this, I'm like, wow, that's a great question. And right away I went into my heart where I try to get all my information these days. And the word was real. And I just thought the more real that I could be, the more that I'll be able to connect with more people. And that's my ultimate mission, is to connect with as many people as possible. So to answer that question, one is that when I'm asked, how are you? I'm as real as they get these days. So I'm going to tell you, like, you know what, I'm feeling a little fatigued right now, or I'm excited, or I'm drained, or I'm frustrated, I'm angry. And I feel by doing that, I'm giving the other person permission to be real if he or she wants to as well. I still ask the question though, and I ask it with the intention of really wanting to know. And if I get a response, like, and if it's in person, it's even better, because I'm getting better every day at reading people. If I feel like you're just giving me like that blanket statement, I was like, I'll call you on it. And in a loving way, my intentions are good. If you're skirting the issue, like through an email, and like you're answering my other questions, but not how are you, I will repeat it. So I realized for me, it's all about intention, and I can't control another person, but I do feel that by leading it from example, by example, even with something as simple as this question, I think is very important and very powerful, and one that we should own and take responsibility for.
Mhm.
Intentionality. Intentionality. I feel like that's something that's like a theme for me lately. It's just right. Just like you're
What are your
saying.
intentions? I can't get caught up in everybody else and how they're going to act and react, but I know what my intentions are. I mean, and I think that's so important. I can't get caught up. I know deep down in my heart, I don't want to upset anyone. I know deep down in heart, I don't want to disrupt anyone. I just want to see people be happy. I want to see people give love and receive love. And if it's that simple, my heart's in the right place, and the questions are going to follow in the right place as well.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Thank you for going off a little bit on that, but because I really want to hear, Nancy, about your journey. But those were quite, Scott knows when these questions call to us, we just ask them. So we just
But Jody, so this is the beautiful thing about it, is that this is a part of Nancy's journey, and with everything that she's achieved, and I want to say the topics, the issues, everything that she's addressing in her work right now, is that all of these experiences, the style of communication, everything's allowing her to go deeper with people, to go deeper with major corporations, to go deeper. You talk about like disrupting the status quo. She's broken the mold in so many ways. And because of that, we're more free. And I mean this as a world, as a civilization, because it's like throwing that pebble into a still pond. She is having a ripple effect. So everything that we're talking about has been, Nancy's personal journey, but a journey I think that she's taking other people on, because these are not comfortable conversations she's having. And these are not like, I mean, if you don't mind, Jody, I just wanted to ask her, I might be jumping all over here.
No,
but,
go.
Pay equity, pay transparency. I just want to hear Nancy talk about this, because we shouldn't be having, let's just say 2022, we shouldn't even be having this conversation.
Great.
This and I guess my question is for Nancy is just to discuss this, but also why I want to say this time, but it's been going on for a little while now. Why at this time is this being brought to the surface? What's changed? I know you're a facilitator of that change, but what's changed to the point where now, getting back to what we were talking about before, we're listening?
I'm going to tell you.
I know you
are. No, seriously, this is what's changed. Well, so a couple of weeks ago, I was at World at Work, their Total Rewards Expo, and I gave a talk, and it was about pay transparency. And at that talk, I started by saying, I'm not going to get naked, because the title of the talk was Naked and Afraid. And it was addressing how do companies deal with pay transparency. I know Scott's laughing at me. So it was good. I had, I had quite a few people attend. And I said, I'm not going to get naked, but I am going to get transparent. And I shared my entire salary history with about 50 people that were listening to me at that moment. Never done that in my life. I thought my heart was like, I thought you could hear it through the microphone. I was holding the microphone. I was like, I bet they can hear my heart right now. It was exhilarating. It was great. And I did it though, because it wasn't about Nancy. It was about the fact that I wanted to really bring it home to them. What is happening? And what's happening is the phone is like the Gutenberg printing press right now. It is changing everything. So you have access to a ton of information and you have access to it immediately. That's what's shifted. We've seen, and honestly, I think, Scott, that's why you've seen the shift that you've had in terms of the power of employees, the power of sort of everybody right now. It's a trend, I think, that started around the financial crisis. The pandemic was an accelerant, right? Where you had essential workers who were making minimum wage, right? People who are risking their lives while they're handing you that roll of toilet paper, right? I mean, it's that we all relied on to keep the lights on at those places where we needed to get things. So you're seeing this whole sort of everybody saying, wait, why is it this way? And now when we're sharing information, information is power. And what we're seeing is people are sharing with one another. They're sharing their salaries, not just for their own benefit. What's fascinating to me is you're seeing people helping each other out. They're advocating. There's this huge advocacy effort going on where people are saying, hey, I'm going to tweet out, this is my job. This is what I was making. I'm leaving this job, but I just want any new applicant to know that this was what my salary was, just so you all know. You're seeing that. You're seeing Hannah Williams on TikTok, Salary Transparent Street, walking around the streets of DC and saying, what do you do? What do you make? And you're seeing that this is, there's like, I don't know, over 30 videos now that she's made of that. You're seeing people post, self-post salaries that are public, spreadsheets. And I think, so there's this entire sort of advocacy effort going on where people know, if it's out in the open, if I can shine a light on it, I can change it. I can hold people accountable for it. I think that in combination with, you're also seeing, shareholders are, as a result, shareholders are concerned, executives are concerned because there's this, it's the overused term war for talent. But right now, people, employees definitely have the power. Our economy, you're seeing signals that it's contracting. But at the same time, the jobs report just came out and jobs are expanding. So you're just sort of seeing this. I think there's a great sort of shifting of things and right sizing of things that's happening. And between that, now salary transparency, pay transparency legislation, everybody's freaking out because more and more states, New York State just passed it, it's on the governor's desk, around you have to post ranges, your salary ranges when you're posting for a job. All of this is coming to bear, and pretty soon salaries are going to be public. And now companies are going to really need to demonstrate how they're valuing employees, the why behind how they're valuing employees. It's not this big secret anymore. And that's a lot of the, sort of the shift that you're seeing. But I think it comes down to just access to information. That, the Edelman Trust Barometer, it was interesting, the results of that. They, surveyed thousands of people. Governments are not what people are relying on to affect social change. Business. That's what employees, everybody is saying. Businesses are going to create change, which is fascinating. So it's just, I think this whole shift, that's why you're seeing it be addressed. And it's the reason why we haven't solved for it is because you have, you're making thousands of compensation decisions across many companies every day. Companies try their best to control for this, but they haven't done it effectively. They haven't had the tools to really do it in a real-time way and monitor what they're doing. And so now that we're getting that sort of those abilities, and now you're having the pressure as well, companies are saying, we really need to throw muscle around this. We really need to solve for this, make sure we're doing this right. And it's a foundational thing. And then build on that and build out the harder part, I think, Scott, which is, pay equity is actually not so hard at the end of the day, because you can literally throw money at the problem and solve it. Opportunity equity is the thing that's harder. Why do I not see the same folks that are in lower levels of the organization in the higher levels of the organization? And Why do I see things like functional segregation? You know, basically certain functions tend to be dominated by certain groups of people. Why do I see that? And we know why, because, you know, again, skill sets, it is a lot of who you know, what you're familiar with, all those types of things. They're not necessarily intentional, but they're certainly ingrained culturally. And so that's what you're seeing, people kind of questioning and breaking out of those patterns and saying, what can we do that's really effective to change that? So, but it's all about information and access to information.
PAM10 is a leader in IT enterprise solutions and staffing. They are driven to transform their clients' business performances. They do this every day by providing their clients with the best services and products like BizLego, an online community platform, and Colear, a unique learning management system. They also transform the lives of women and children through their associated nonprofits, SheTech, which supports women in and joining the technology field, and Softkin, support organization for kids in need. PAM10, technology for social good. Go to pam10.com for more information.
Nancy, you know, as the director of pay strategy and partner success, I'm curious to know, and I think others will be too, is what does that mean? And how are you getting into the nitty gritty with your clients and working to help move the needle here?
Sure. So, I mean, it gets pretty technical. It's working with companies and looking at their data with them. And by their data, I mean, let's download it out of your, HR information system. Let's look at everybody you have, the thousands of employees you have, their jobs, their salaries, their hire date. Let's look at every, element of them, and let's literally, sort them, group them, and ask those questions. Is what we say we pay for what we're paying for? So we do that through statistical analysis. And so it's a very, in-depth surgical sort of process of but again, we have a software that makes it really intuitive and easy. So, which is very exciting for people like me, who I'm not a statistical expert. And it really, it immediately unveils for you, wow, yeah, we have some issues here. There are some areas where we can't rule gender out as driving pay. That's illegal. That's a problem. We need to correct for that. Or race, ethnicity. We can slice up the different demographic groups and look at it that way and say, yeah, we see some patterns here that are undesirable, to say the least. We need to correct for that. So it begins with that, but then it's also solving for, we say we pay for performance. We're using performance rating, but it doesn't really have a lot of impact on pay. What does that mean about how we're managing people and how we value performance? How do we define performance? How do we talk to people about performance, right? And that goes to then, how am I developing in my role? What are the things I'm supposed to achieve? Like, it all goes to the employee experience, but it's about helping. A lot of times what we're doing is really just helping clients start to measure those things they can, and beginning with pay, often and all sorts of forms of pay, bonus, equity, as well as base salary, and then getting their arms around that, and then working toward what systems can we put in place so that things don't go off the rails. We've done all of this correction. How can we bring people in or promote people and yet make sure we're doing it within a safe range based on how we already pay people? So just helping them manage compensation better, and then unpack, why do I see that, Jody's over here, Nancy's over here, Scott's over here. And what does that tell me about their skill sets? Why do we see such unevenness across the levels of our organization or functional areas? What are tangential skill sets? What are ways that we can create a path so that everybody has the same opportunities to be successful with our organization? And that's something that's really important right now, especially we have scarcity of talent. So companies can't continue to throw money at some of these critical skill set jobs. They need to somehow cultivate the talent that they have. And that makes for a better employee experience anyway. If I know my company's investing in my skills and wants me to develop and says, hey, yeah, this, look, Jody, you have this skill set over here. I know you're doing this. Would you ever be interested in leading this group over here? Let's talk about that. Let's think about what's a path that you can take, or better yet, we have a system here that's self-service where you can identify and kind of raise your hand for participating in those types of programs. So I think a lot of companies are figuring out how to do that. And the beauty is, there's technology out there, but I think the challenge for many organizations is like, just how does that come together? How do we, like for everything, right? How do we reach our employees? How do we make sure we're doing this in the fairest way possible? And I think it's a lot of data. It's a lot of looking at data and being kind of like we were saying about our self, reflection. It's companies are doing that same exercise. They're trying to reflect on themselves and they're discovering things that they didn't know before, which is really exciting too.
Do you find that they're very open when you have to share all of these potential inequities that they might not even realize are going on?
There's definitely a change management aspect to a lot of this. So what we find is companies that are talking to us, right, are ready to talk to us. Now, ready could be that our board of directors is saying, what are you doing about this? So we're concerned about the sustainability and long-term value of our investment in this company. So you need to solve for this. This is a huge issue around human capital. So what are you doing? Sometimes it's just, we're exhausted and many HR folks are they have become COVID experts these past couple of years, not, intentionally, and they've been wrestling with so much. So this becomes another thing that, oh my gosh, we are just so tired and we know we don't have the tools and we know we need to solve for this and we could really use help. We need not just, software, we need expertise. We need people who can coach us and work with us and educate us and help us achieve these goals. So I think the people we tend to work with initially, they're very receptive. And then to your point, then there comes the, okay, we're going to have to tell leadership about this, or, oh, wow, like, I don't know if I want to believe that. It's like, well, the data don't, and so then it's working with them to say, totally get that. Let's think about how we communicate with leadership. How do we educate them as to what we did? We're not going to talk about, p-values and regression analytics and variation explained. We're not going to get into so let's think about how we can just sort of take them along through this journey of, yes, we used a robust statistical process. These are our findings. And here are our actions. This is what we're going to do. Here are short-term risks we're going to address. And here are the longer-term risks that we need to address that are going to take more time. So we have a lot of those conversations, but it's a real change management, and it's change management for the teams we're working with, because we're educating them as we're doing this work with them. We're teaching them how to do this for themselves. That's a big part of what we do, which I find really exciting too, because now then they take what we're doing and they're like, what about this? And it's like, oh, I never thought of it. And it's just, so you're learning from them as they work with the platform and they interrogate the data and they ask us to do things with them that we're like, oh, we didn't think about that. That's really great. So it's, it's just exciting working with more and more folks as you watch sort of that journey of discovery and kind of internalization and then championing.
Nancy, Jody's Changemakers range from like president CEOs of major corporations to small business owners. Obviously, everything you're sharing could stand alone at a major corporation, but if maybe you're a mid-size or a smaller company, does this fit under the umbrella of diversity, inclusion, where if this is something that like they've heard about, but they want to give more attention to, where do you see that plugging into maybe that mid-size or that smaller company?
I think, that's a great question. Mid-sized companies typically still, they have HR teams. I think, if you're a company, say, below 500 people, you could start to work with us. That might be, say, the minimum, I would say, around in terms of probably the resources, the capacity you'd have to, say, work with us. But above 500 people, you have an HR team, you at least have a couple of people who sometimes I'll say, Scott, are you paying people? So then you have an infrastructure that we can work with. And to your point, it's usually a lot of the work I'm doing is done by, say, a total rewards or compensation professional. Like that tends to be the team I'm working with, and maybe legal folks as well. They're often involved in these. And then they're bringing in DEI folks, talent management folks. So we, workforce analytics. So we're seeing that it really depends on kind of their infrastructure, but generally it's HR. It's the HR folks, and they're typically the owners of the data that we're initially working with are usually your total rewards people, compensation people.
What advice do you have for the smaller companies, mid-size, that you said they're not a fit for exactly the work that you're doing, but they still need to have the resources? What would you suggest for them?
So we have partners that we work with. So sometimes depending, I'm happy to talk to anybody that has questions for sure. I mean, I'll say
talk.
that.
Remember, she
I'm a talker.
That absolutely is all inclusive. I could tell anyone listening right now. She will talk to anyone out there who's listening.
Anyone.
Yes.
You got it. No, but seriously, like if for, smaller firms, we have partners that we work with. So we might say to them, hey, because sometimes that smaller firm might be a tech firm that, well, I have 500 people today. I'm going to have 1,000 by the end of the year, so it depends. But certainly, yeah, we're, happy to talk with people. And we actually have a lot of resources on our website that might be helpful to people as well. So we can share that at the end as well, just to I think for a lot of folks, they just want to be a little more educated about sort of the state of the state, what's going on. And just that is a great way to get started. And then if you decide, hey, we need to move forward and do some analytics and things, then we can always connect you with people that can help you in a better way.
That's great. Thank you, Nancy. I want to move on to SPAN, because I do want to hear more about that. But is there anything else you want to share, or Scott, you want to ask about Syndio and Nancy's work?
I just, if she could share, because we have such a diverse audience through this forum that Jody's created, is that a lot of people thinking about like career changes, and you've done that, Nancy, and you've done that beautifully. And obviously there's fear that's involved. There's, am I worthy enough? And valuing the costs and payoffs to everything. Is that, especially with this last jump that you took, is that what advice, again, now knowing what you do know and having made that and knowing full well you're reaping the benefits, looking back on it, is that, like, could you share with people like what some of those little discoveries you had that allowed you to, make that jump? And not necessarily thinking, I always say the mind thinks, the heart knows, but knowing in your heart that, this is the best step for me.
I love that question, because I think it did come from that little voice in my heart saying, in my old role, you're not happy. Things aren't like you're doing. I had the benefit of working for a company where I reinvented myself several times during my journey there. And I learned a great deal, worked with a lot of really great people. That said, it got to a point where I had questions, and I didn't have the answers to the questions. So I think it goes back to Scott, right? I don't know. But if I'm asking the question, that is telling me something. So I started asking that question myself. And then I wasn't getting very far talking to myself. So then I engaged with a fantastic career and life coach. His name is Scott Chesney. And so
I wasn't setting it up for that.
Wow, that was well done, guys. Very good.
But
that wasn't self-promotion. No.
I know. No, but seriously, but I think it's part of, to me, that's very integral, because it gave me, I did a lot of work with Scott. And one of the biggest things I would say came out of that was affirmation that I was on the right track. And then what I couldn't do was, again, getting out of my own head. He just kind of, and Scott's like, I want to say like pushed me along, but it gave me some actionable steps. And they began at my current, at that role initially, try this, but it was just like, that's what I needed. I needed to strategize with somebody who could help me navigate that and have the confidence, honestly, to do that. And I did that. And then that led me to make that conclusion that it's time to leave. And so, but that too was also a lot of self-discovery. For me personally, I didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do. I am in my let's just say this didn't exist, this role. I had nowhere to go, and I knew it, because that's what, I mean, I spent all those years as a compensation consultant. I've written over 1,000 job descriptions. There was no job description for the role that I envisioned for myself. And then, but I think it goes to listening to your heart, being open to experiences. And luckily, one of those experiences was meeting the team I work with now. And that work with them, it just became very clear that, oh, wow, this is the path. Like, if I reflect on my work with them, all I want to do is work with them. I'm thinking about them. I love what they're doing. I was learning things. It was opening my brain to all these, oh my God, this realization and this realization. And I'm like, wow. And then it got to a point where it was like FOMO. Oh my gosh, please. It was the worst. For a pay transparency person, it was the worst salary negotiation ever, because it was just, I'm like, I'm leaving this place. Would you take me? Like, literally, that was how it went. And they were like, what would you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. I said I could do this. I could, and we, just kind of ran through the different areas that I thought I could contribute. And what we decided was, okay, why don't you come on as a consultant? Would that be okay? If you came on as a consultant, we're a small software startup company. We can't necessarily make an investment in a role. And we don't want to pigeonhole you. And I'm like, that's awesome, because I don't want to be in a box. I want to build something. I don't know what that means. So that's exactly what we agreed to. And it worked out. And then that's when we said, you know what, this is what you are. So director of pay strategy and partner success. Okay. We defined it, what that meant. And it's been wonderful. It's my dream job. It just took me 30 years to get here, but I am definitely doing that. So I guess my advice to people would be, listen to the questions that you're asking, ask the question, even if you, and then actually maybe stop yourself from trying to answer it right away. And maybe find a trusted partner, somebody that you can talk with. And it may be a few people in your network, and it could be, and I encourage you to go outside of your network, like ask people you wouldn't normally ask, right? Think, and definitely take the chance. Like, life is too short, follow your passion. To me, we had an all hands with our whole organization. Again, we're about 140-ish people in Arizona. I came back from that and I said to my husband, I said, I have never had a meeting like that, a work meeting, because it wasn't a work meeting. It was, I said, we were all so vulnerable with one another, our mission, our purpose. I said, my heart is bursting. And I said, get ready. I said, I hope I have your support, because I am all in. This is more than a job to me. This is so much more. I said, this is my passion. And and of course, he's wonderful and very supportive. So, but I was just like, I am all in. This is what I want to do. So it's, yeah, I encourage people, because I think it's easy for us to make excuses as to why we can't do things. And I've always been really good at that, about finding an excuse as to, well, I can't do that, or I can't do that. And I think then there are those times when I think of myself actually as Piglet from like Winnie the Pooh. Like, that's me. I'm terrified all of the time. So Scott's just laughing at me. No, but I really am. But then there's a point sometimes, and this has happened often in my life and often with regard to my children. Suddenly there's that like that strength or that courage or something that comes out, right, and compels you. And you are just, oh, I don't have time to be fearful, because I need to do this. So I think, the more that we can pay attention to that voice. And my thought would be, if you're living your life and you're not feeling those feelings, I think that also tells you something. Like, maybe, how can you bring that in? Maybe it's not work. It doesn't have to be work, but it could be volunteer work. It could be some other element of your life. But goodness, like, life becomes such a richer experience when you're learning and energized by what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And there's the transition, Jody. There's the transition to span.
Wait a minute, before we transition, hold on now. I just have to say that I have to agree with that. And I want the listeners to understand that if you're feeling that I don't know what my next step is, that is not failing. And I don't even like the word fail. I always say we fall because we get back up. We don't fail, we fall. And I borrowed that from Brene Brown, but I always give her credit for it. But the truth is like, there's a lot of people who don't know what they want. And that's why I have to keep asking, right? That I don't know, like you said, keep asking. And Changemakers wouldn't have happened if that feeling, like you just mentioned, had to happen without the fear, had no idea. And so I understand what you're saying. And life throws it at you when you're ready for it. It just does. Whether you believe God, the universe, whatever it is, that's what happens. And yes, we will now talk about SPAN. So now, Parent Advocacy Network, you're very passionate about this work. Tell us what that is all about.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm not even going to be able to do it justice. I would definitely encourage folks to poke around SPAN's
How do
website.
they find it?
But it's and we can I think definitely share the website. But SPAN it's the statewide parent advocacy network of New Jersey. But their reach is beyond New Jersey. They really have national reach, and they have a ton of work that they do with families, educating them to be advocates for their children, typically. So they do a lot of work in underrepresented communities as well, just making sure everyone has a voice. So I think that's what really I loved. I love the thought of being able to contribute to that. And I don't think of myself as, I mean, I'm on the board. I'm the board secretary right now. I take all the notes during the meetings. And I find that I bring the HR voice to some things. Just that's what I try to do, is I'm trying to be supportive from that sort of organizational aspect. But our board members and the folks that work at that organization are really the experts. They're just amazing people. They navigated through this pandemic. They do a lot of training and a lot of coaching with families. And they had to switch all of that up with the pandemic, and they did it seamlessly. It took a lot of work, but they were able to do it. And now they're trying to figure out, like for a lot of these programs, as they execute them, kind of making that transition. But they regularly win awards for the work that they do. And it is a combination of a lot of that training and advocacy work and helping families do what they need to do and educating, as well as weighing in on policies and things, and always looking out for families, and really making sure legislation is going in the right way and things of that sort. So really just helping families that may not have the resources often. We were really blessed. I have twins, and they're 19 now, and my son has autism. And so SPAN, we were very lucky. We had a lot of resources. We were in a great district, and he's in a great school. And, but my heart goes out to families that have children with special needs that they don't have those resources. So that's part of the work that SPAN does. And that's what I think is fantastic.
That's good you're sharing it here. For those who don't know about it, I think it's really important, and we'll make sure that they have all the information for SPAN in this episode. So, I mean, I think Scott and I could probably talk to you for 5 hours because you have so much energy, passion. I mean, there's not a lack of passion here at all. And so it's awesome. So there's 2 more questions.
Sure.
But I'm gonna ask the fun question first, and then we'll get into the last question. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what it is, but when we were having our initial conversation, the lovely word Oreo, and who doesn't like Oreos, double stuff or regular? Preferably, I like double stuff.
Potential sponsor for this program.
Another, yes.
Between Starbucks, hello Starbucks, and
Oreo.
and Nabisco, I think it is, right? I think Nabisco is the one who owns. So there's an Oreo story between the 2 of you, Nancy, I believe.
Well, see, I think I'd like to begin with, this goes to show that how strong our friendship is, because even when we have major differences of opinion, and even when we're both kind of wrong anyway, I'm going to say it. Yeah. we just, we share the love, and we can agree to disagree, or we can nudge each other to death And much to the chagrin of our respective spouses, who often shut it down because they're sick of hearing us arguing about it. So yeah, we have an issue about the color of Oreos. So we both have opinions of what the color of an Oreo is. Now, I will
We
give you
do agree that the middle is white.
All right,
We do.
The
good
middle
start.
is white.
We start with, right now, the official, what the Nabisco's put out is that Oreos are Oreo color. So they total cop out, because
Yeah,
apparently
so funny.
my friend and I are not alone in this dispute that we have. So apparently this is a thing, and we made it a thing. And yeah, we blew up Facebook, right, Scott? We blew up
Yeah, I
Facebook.
have Jody in the middle of our screen, so she can decide right now. And so she's either
Oh,
gonna
no.
like,
Oh, no. Oh, no, we're not doing that. Because I don't know what kind of conversation. You're on the podcast with her all the time.
she's got no.
I knew nothing about this Oreo coupon.
Are they
Go ahead,
brown? Are they black?
You want my real opinion on this
I
one,
want-
guys?
Yes.
I'm scared because I don't know who I'm going to be.
Okay, you're going to know immediately.
Black. Everybody who's streaming, Scott is kind of doing the little hand
Whatever.
movement
Look
thing.
at him.
He's rolling away.
He's doing, look at, okay. Yeah, because there wasn't a thing going on between the two of you.
I
Okay,
swear.
okay.
Scott, did we
like a
No,
podcast, like
nothing.
club, whatever. It's all it's fine. It's fine. I understand. It's okay,
You know
Jody. I forgive you. I forgive you.
Listen, just
sorry. I'm
because
sorry,
she's like
Nancy.
the guru of diversity, inclusion, pay equity, does not mean she's the most diverse like Oreo person in the world. That she's got her faults.
This is where he goes. He goes to these dark
I love it. Well,
places.
you know what? We're going to throw this out to the listeners. So if you are hearing this on the podcast, we want to know your answer. If you're hearing this, please comment or send me an email at jody@todaysthedayliveit.com. We want to know your thoughts. We'll take a survey. Worldwide. It's a worldwide Oreo
I think
survey.
that's fantastic.
We have 37
remember that they're
countries so
black.
far that have downloaded this podcast. So let's see what everybody's saying.
And all of them have access to Oreos.
All of them.
Yeah, they do.
It
They
is.
do all have. I love this. All right. I'm going to keep you posted on the results of this Oreo
I
contest.
want to hear this. Yes, I really do.
Absolutely. Oh, this is great. This has been super fun. And Nancy, this question, I really am curious to hear your answer to.
Oh.
What is the footprint that you're creating right now that you want to leave behind?
So it's a great question. For me, I think it's about helping people work better together. So I think that's really when I think about the work that I'm engaged in sort of every day, it's really helping people achieve their goals together. And obviously, and at the heart of that is making sure that we're treating one another fairly, making sure everybody has access to all manner of opportunities and education. So it's really just sort of opening up the world. But I think in that regard, it's at the end of the day, it's about helping people just be better and work together better.
Great answer. Thank you so much. That's great. And I knew you'd go in that somewhat of that direction because that kind of sums up the work that you're doing right now. So Scott, I always have to ask you a last question too, as well, of course. So I know I probably have asked you the footprint question before, but I think that the footprint question changes from time to time, and we haven't been on for a bit together. So I'm curious if your answer would be any different now. What is the footprint you're creating currently that you want to leave behind?
It's the same footprint. It's just deeper now. It's more engraved, but it's absolutely service to others. And I realize that is getting even deeper the more that I realize about myself. So I know the journey starts within, the more that I can understand. And I mean this, not just because she's a guest on, is that Nancy has, get me emotional here. She has challenged me through just basic discussions to go deeper, to make peace with certain things, to open up my eyes and my ears a little bit more. And while it is a place of vulnerability, that is a tough place to go, is that like, you feel like you're in a good place. You feel like with Nancy at the helm, that you're being guided in the right direction. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful that like she's in service. And I just want to say this real quick, because I think it's part of the reason why she's doing the work she's doing now, is that and I mean this respectfully, when she was playing small, she was still doing a great service to people and helping out a lot of people. When she stepped into her power, is that she's realized how more it flows almost effortlessly, how much she's enjoying it more, and how many more people she's actually able to help. So that's why I wanted her to be on the show, because she is an example of, have that courage, step into your power, and just sit back and watch what happens, because it's a glorious ride.
Now, you might have just named the episode. I mean, that was really, really have that courage, step into your power.
I thought it was going to be Oreos or black, but that's okay. That's okay. We can do that.
Subtitles.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's awesome. And we just came full circle back to that vulnerability and the sharing of the heart and being in service. And that's kind of what it's all about. And the more we make it so that it's the norm, as opposed to being abnormal. It's never abnormal. It's just not often done because people are afraid. And so if we could take the fear of judgment back again, I'll say it. We can do this type. Getting emotional should be commonplace because we care about each other. It's a good place. It's heart-centered. So thank you both for being heart-centered and sharing today. And it exudes between the relationship you have, besides the Oreo competition that's going on. The love you have for each other as friends is just incredible. And I'm so honored to know both of you. So Scott Chesney, where can people find you?
www.scottchesney.com. You can find all my social media handles on there, and telephone number, however you need to reach me.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy, where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, is probably the easier thing, because I do have a really long name. So but Nancy.Romanyshyn at synd.io is me at Syndio. But all that information's on LinkedIn as well. So.
Well, Nancy Romanyshyn, now I know how to say your name. I'm so excited. And Scott Chesney, I am so honored to have had this podcast episode with you. I look forward to you hopefully both being involved consistently with us in Changemakers and the upcoming forum in 2023. And I'm going to say what I say at the end of every single podcast. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what steps, small or large, are you going to take today to get yourself closer to your goal? Have a great week, everyone. Thanks, Nancy and Scott.